I told him to hire you for storytelling. He can dance over in the middle and lower school.
I mean, I'm your girl.
I'm the next one, guys. I'm good. How about you? Okay.
I'm not even these rap shoes.
I know.
Oh, it's rap, but you know,
You're here. That's right.
yeah.
That's right. We're making our rounds, but we like we
We'll
we
do
pop
that.
in a
Pop
little bit.
in.
Okay.
Whenever you time.
Love it.
Thank you. Nice to meet you.
Like second grade, they stand outside my classroom window and they're like waving, making faces. I was like, hi, I called them. Hi. They don't know me yet.
Because it starts now. And I don't want to, yeah, okay, but thank you.
Oh yes, probably yes.
Then it started.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I was thinking how to but it's supposed to be like fun.
By knowing now.
Maybe that's why it looks better. Well, now I'm doing all the chess. Because I play with boys. And Joe's like, I can't wait till I beat him like 2 days ago, but I lost like this month. I beat Joe 2 days ago, but I lost like week before that. Like, John's like, Joe, you know how to play chess. I'm like, oh, Joe, yeah. I signed up with Sophia to do chess. He's like, well, I know how to do it.
Hi. Good afternoon. Thank you so much. Given how nice the menu of options is, thank you for choosing me. I appreciate it. Hopefully at the end of it, you don't feel like, oh, maybe I should have gone for that other one. That is my biggest hope, that you take something away and this is useful to you in some sort of way. So I'm going to start off by introducing myself. I like using this picture because, you know, smoke and mirrors of youth. So my name is Beth Atiavila Mudaki. You can just call me Beth. Americans love that one. It's very easy to the point. And I consider myself an African storyteller. I love to talk. I love to tell stories. I think that life is just a big collection of stories. And I remember one time I had a friend who was like, "Do you never run out of stories to tell?" I was like, no. I mean, since I woke up till now, I can tell you 40 different very interesting things that I've observed. And I live in New York, so there's always something going on. I'm a global educator, and I consider myself self-appointed ambassador of African wisdom. Not that I carry any of the wisdom myself, I'm just the vehicle, I'm a portal. I'm a teacher, I'm a community builder, and I consider myself a belonging leader, and I currently work at the French American School of New York. I serve as the lead coordinator for community and belonging across all their 3 campuses. And I think that given my background, this is gonna be, I think, helpful to see. This is me. And this picture was taken in 1996. Please do not do the math. But I took my children back. I'm Kenyan. I come from Kenya, born, raised, that's home. And we went home for summer. My children are kind of like, you know, a hyacinth. They're just drifters. They go wherever mama goes, and mama goes lots of places. And so taking them back home is one of the things that I think is a gift a mother can give to children. And so as expensive as it is, and it is expensive, I went back home so that my children could not forget their roots, who they are, their people. And it's now my daughters are 9 years. I have twin daughters and a 4-year-old son. And this is the first time they can understand something. So I showed them, I said, you know, when I was a little girl, I'm not like a Lupita Nyong'o type of Kenyan. Lupita's father is a governor. She was raised and born in privilege. No, I am the barefooted girl in the village, carrying water on her head. I am that girl. Cooking on an open fire on the Three Stones. I am that girl. I am as African as stereotypically possible. And I learned how to write on the back of banana leaves. This is, I was showing my children because they've never seen that. And I said, you know, when I was little, I had to learn how to write. But books were so precious that my mom would buy a 32-page exercise book and she would cut it in half. And she would buy a pencil and chop it into 4 pieces, which meant if I went to school and I lost it, I still have some backups after, you know, her very beautifully reminding me not to lose it. But to make sure that the books were properly used, we learned how to write in sand on the back of banana leaves. And as you can see, a banana leaf can do quite a few things. You can use it as a plate, you can use it as a book. You can use it for multiple reasons, for multiple things. And these were my first toys. I never had a doll. My parents didn't buy me toys. And my mom was a school teacher, a head of school, and my father was a doctor. So we were not dire, you know, in poverty. But my parents were big philanthropic people and they supported so many other people, and so money was a little tight. And so I learned how to make my own toys. I know it looks a little bit of the voodoo doll that I've seen in movies, people sticking pins in. But listen, the skill is a little rusty, it's been a while. So I was still showing my children how I would use banana fibers, and I would make these little dolls, and I would make like a family of them, and I would play with them. But I'm telling you all of this to say, that is the duality of my existence. This is me a few years ago in the village, still fetching water from the running river to bring home and boil and drink. And the girls had just done their dishes. These are the girls from my village. This is where I'm married. I'm also the dune-bashing Nissan Patrol driving girl. And I'm also the globe-trotting educator. This is somewhere in Mumbai. And I'm telling you this story to say that when I started teaching internationally, a lot of people wouldn't hire me for many different reasons. I remember a school in Singapore that was so impressed by my CV, but they weren't sure that my university education was valid in their own country. There was a school in Düsseldorf, Germany, that wanted me to do some work for them, but the bureaucracy of getting me my visa was so difficult for a Kenyan passport that they ended up just rescinding the offer and saying, unfortunately, it's just too much work. I'm not an EU citizen and therefore very difficult to work in Europe. I have lost some jobs in the Middle East. Is it the far west? West Asia, let's use that. It's more West Asia to here, right? And because either the school didn't think I could teach English, I'm an English teacher, because English is not my native language, it's my 4th language. And I find it so funny. I'm like, but your child is not a native English speaker. I know the science of hacking this language. I could show your child. But some of the people that I've met haven't hired me, not because they're not wonderful people who don't see my potential, who don't see my qualifications and experience. They haven't hired me because the system is not built for someone like me, right? I'm the very bottom of the social ladder. I'm Black, I'm African, I'm a woman. And so in many different circumstances, I'm not ideal for many things. And I've had a fight. I mean, not physically, but I can throw hands, but most schools don't necessarily have a belonging problem. They have a systems problem. And so my observation, having lived here for the past 3.5 years, which has been a ride, I have learned many things, including it's not the lack of good people. It is not because people don't have good intentions. And in fact, right now, I work with some very wonderful people who want to give me exposure and maximize my potential and let me work with them. But just like people ask, why do you not teach in an international school in Kenya? Because I don't know, but if you've talked to a teacher working internationally in Kenya, they're living the dream. You know, they have free housing, free healthcare, free education for their children, the housing is affordable. And yes, you deal with problems like anywhere else in the world, but the reason why is because a lot of parents, Kenyan parents, would rather have a white, native English-speaking man teach their children. And so the school is a business. And as much as the head of school or HR would love to hire me from experience, there's going to be maybe a bit of, backlash on why they're hiring somebody who's not a native English speaker, because parents want their children to have the right accent, to have in their minds, they're paying all of these thousands of dollars for a certain experience and I'm not it. And so all of these good people may not be able to do what they really want to do because the system is just flawed. So in my mind, my little, African girl imagination mind, I think that fixing people is very temporary, doesn't sustain things. And if we want to do the work, we have to fix the system. Now, the system has a few things that I really love, including the idea that it's abstract. We can't name it, we don't know where it exists, we can't find it, we can't hate it, it's the system, right? And I love that because I come from the land of fables, the elephant and the hare, the lion and the tortoise. I come from land of fables. You don't need to give me a face to know where the danger lies. You don't need to point fingers at anyone for me to know my instincts tell me this situation is a little bit flawed. So, why are we here? We are here because diversity work is under extreme scrutiny at the moment. I hear that, things are being said, articles are being written, and it's just generally feels like a very dangerous time to do diversity work. Fatigue is rising, and in the morning we had the keynote spoke about fatigue and different types of fatigue, but it can feel very exhausting. We also know that resistance is increasing, right? And it's to me interesting because I've not been here long enough to know if the resistance never used to exist, wasn't just being spoken, or existed, but people didn't have the boldness to bring it up. Either way, resistance seems to be increasing, right? I don't think resistance is increasing. I think people are finally bold enough to say, I don't want you to be yourself, right? I want you to conform to what I'm comfortable being able to consume. And this, what you're presenting, is a little bit jarring to my sensibilities or what I consider to be known. So, regardless of this, students still need belonging. And I know there's a lot of discomfort, but I want you to consider that discomfort is data. It's information. Whenever a topic comes up and you're talking about it, emails are being sent, things are being said, and meetings are being set up. Why is there discomfort? So being able to find out why that discomfort exists, I think offers us some sort of lens into where the data is, right? What is it? Why is this one topic having you all up in this, why are you so upset? And I think that scrutinizing discomfort is a very important thing. But where do we go from here? We need to be able to think of belonging as something that is not performative, because a lot of schools and a lot of institutions do that, right? You put on this show, you put on that meeting, you put on this announcement, you publish this article, but are we really putting our money where our mouth is? Are we walking the talk? And we need to go beyond isolated initiatives. In the morning, I attended a very wonderful presentations done by the public, what is the title of the people who send out, blast the messages to the community? Communications director, DI director, and the head of NYSAIS. And it was very informative because they were talking about having a framework so that whenever something comes up and they need to announce it, it is not an isolated, hey, they have a system, they are anticipating if this happens, then we have a system to do that. And also we need systems that hold, because you could be doing amazing work at your school, but once you leave, the work kind of sort of leaves with you, right? We had at my school a DI director when I first got here, and she was doing amazing work. But then she left and the school wasn't sure what they wanted to do with that position. Should we hire another director? Should we have different people on the campuses? Because our school is situated on different campuses. And the school didn't know whether they wanted to maybe just have somebody on each campus. While they were debating that, diversity work was stalling. But the thing that was so amazing to me was, why was the work stalling? Right? If you had a system in place, you don't need for somebody to be sitting in that position for the work to be done. The work needs to be a part of the fiber that builds the fabric of the school, so that even when one thread goes out, the fabric still holds and serves its purpose as cloth, right? So I think that the best direction to go is to convert all of this talking to walking. But how do we do that? I'm going to ask you to do one little thing. I see most of you have your laptop, so that's going to be easy. If you do not, you can pull your laptop out or your phone out. You can be excited. My students get so excited when I say, take out your Chrome. Yes. Because I don't go Guardian, but also they just are like, yes, this is a free pass to open that tab, to do that task in the next class. So please do not be, don't have any malicious intentions. I want you to pull out, if your school has a mission or a vision statement, kindly pull it out. Just pull it out. What is your school's mission statement? What is your school's vision statement? Or maybe even the values that your school have put out on your website. The public facing spaces of your school. What is your school telling people they will find when they walk in? Right? I'm going to give you a minute to do that. Do you think that your school's mission statement is equivalent to the lived experience? You, as a person working at that school, you look at that mission statement, you're like, yep, we just did that, we're doing that. Is it tracking with everything you know the experience at your school to be? Now, we're going to circle back to that, because I'll ask, what is the one part of your mission statement that you think is not the reality on the ground? Because the mission statement, I feel like the US is a very litigative, what is that? Litigious. Oh, Americans love a good lawsuit. Oh my God, they enjoy a lawsuit. Anything, it's incredible. I'm learning, but I'm learning slow. Because I'm not accustomed to it. I come from a village mentality. I'm like, you know that I didn't mean that. It's okay. They're like, no, my lawyer will call your lawyer. I'm like, I don't care. I don't have no lawyer for you to call. But they love a good lawsuit. And so I find that a mission statement is almost like the anti-lawsuit. It's the armor that the school puts on, so that if you ever say something that I gotta hold on. We say it in our mission statement. We do not do that. So we hold to that. The reality of that mission statement is not always what it is that our lived experiences are. Our values. At my school, we have this beautiful document, and I wish I could project it here, but I want to still be employed on Monday mornings. I do that. I love my job. I love my school. I work with wonderful people. It took me a minute, and it's unfortunate I'm recording this. No, it's not. It took me a minute to figure out if, and this is a wonderful thing actually, when I ask for something, as the lead DI coordinator, I go and say, we need to increase our budget from this to that. If I can find a way of linking it to the one pager, I am in. Took me a minute, but now I'm a master of the one pager. So the one page is our value system. What do we hold sacred? What is the one thing we shall not default from? So it's a good thing that my head of school is a big fan of the one pager. So when you show up with changes, with this, with that, he always says, can we go back to the one pager and see how this is a connection to the one pager? Which, as you can imagine, is a wonderful thing, but also in the world of loopholes, it's also where you can go and force and create a story and a narrative and try to make it work for you. But our value is equivalent to our practices. And lastly, is our intention similar? Is it equal to impact, right? Somebody had said something somewhere. Oh, there's a lot of some this, some that, right? Litigation. Somebody said something somewhere. Person A said something to person B. And person C heard it and was very upset by what person A said. And they took it upon themselves to go say this to HR and say, this was said in my presence and I think it is wrong. And I thought about it for a minute and I said, interesting, because in the great world of Chan, where we are using the platinum rule and doing what people want and not what we want, we're not treating them how we want to be treated, but how they want to be treated. It's interesting how that just, because person B was so shocked, because they were not offended by what person A said, right? But person C was, in proxy, offended and did something about it. But it made me think, can you imagine what the intention was? And in the end, what the impact was. Did it actually fix the problem or did it make the problem worse? So these three things I want you to keep in the back of your mind. Take a minute, talk to the person next to you. What is belonging to you? What if somebody said, oh, and I remember that in the morning the keynote was like, don't ask me to define words. Don't tell how we were defining words here. Kind of liked our presentation. Don't tell her about just what does belonging mean to you? Because our own understanding of what belonging is very important. How do we create the feeling, right? Once we know what it is, like we're naming things today, right? So what would you define? So just talk to the person sitting next to you, and to you, to them, what is belonging? Okay. Can somebody can anybody offer up what was your definition of belonging? Could you share what did you understand belonging to be? What was it to you? Yes, yeah.
So I was thinking for myself, it would be that I would feel that I belong. Like, I think it's something that I have to define for myself in a way. I am the person who decides
Oh, by the way, you can use
if I belong.
No. This is me. I take up a lot of space. I've always have. Sorry. Can you come and sit, please? Carry on.
Oh, yes, I was just saying that I have to feel that I belong.
It's a feeling.
Yeah, it's a feeling for me.
All right. You want to feel like you belong.
Right.
All right. Anybody else? What was your definition of belonging? If you could find the words that could, yes.
We were talking about feeling safe to present ourselves within all the intersectionalities of how we define ourselves.
Okay, how we define ourselves and feeling safe enough to show up as that definition of ourselves.
Yeah.
I think that we all have ideas of what belonging is, but I think that belonging is, when a system is creating belonging, it is shaped with and not for you, right? When it's being designed, the person designing it has you in mind. They're asking for your opinion, for your perspective, and therefore it is to be shaped with and not for you. Because an outsider cannot tell you what would feel like belonging, right? They would have to ask you, what do you think about our curriculum? What do you think about the disciplinary measures here or the policy here? Does it make you feel like you're included? And it will do a number of things. Number one, you'll feel like somebody actually cares and is asking you, what your perspective is. But also, you feel like, oh, somebody's not just handing me a set of things and saying, this is what you should do to feel like you belong, right? At my school, we have this thing called, we have celebrations for all the observances. So Hispanic American or, all of the celebrated, federal level celebrated observances. We do celebrations, we have assemblies for education, we have, it could be maybe workshops that students put up, but always I send out an email and say, hey, this month, these are our observances. If you belong to any one of these communities and you would like to educate us on some of the things that we may have gaps in, or you really would like to teach us, reach out to me. And it's because I don't want the students to ever feel like, oh, Miss Beth is throwing a party and we're going to show up for it. I don't know how to celebrate you. I don't know what makes you feel safe or you belong. And I always say that sometimes the reason why I put this picture here, that is very nicely filtered, is because honestly, when I make a presentation or I show up for work, me showing up is half the job. I come in my fabrics, in my jewelry, big hair, my scarves, all of those things. They may seem odd to other people, and I have received feedback from students saying, oh, you know what I'm gonna wear on International Day? I have this fabric, I have this dress. If an adult in your vicinity is able to show up regardless of the oddity, regardless of how different they are, regardless of how they sound, they're proud of who they are, that's half the job, right? You're being yourself, and that creates that. Now the school knows to accommodate. I remember one school I worked for had, it was very interesting because I worked in India for a really long time, and I was there for 7 years before I moved here. And I remember the first time I went to India, I had a 2-year contract, and they'd wear kurtis. Kurtis is like a tunic. It has a slit from your waist down, but you wear a legging under it. And it's considered semi-formal. You wear it everywhere, right? You wear it to work, you wear it, like it's a very comfortable just way of dressing. And after that, I went to work in Sudan, which is a Sharia law country. And I was like, oh, these little kurtis there, because the rule that HR had said is your upper arms can't show. So I went shopping, which is my favorite sport. I have a reason to, good one. So I bought all of this like 3/4 sleeve kurtis, and they were pretty in all of these colors with matching leggings. And I was wearing them. And one day, the lady who was in charge of PR, because when you live in a country like Sudan, there's a person in charge of making sure that you do not make a scandal by being too much of yourself. So she said to me, you cannot wear the kurtis. And I said, why? She said, the slit starts from here and your hips are out. And I was like, but my hips are inside the legging. And she was like, yeah, but we can still see your form, and I don't know, it might create issues with the, local community. And so I had to adjust that. But the thing about it is, after I left, they had to revise what their perception of formal dress was. Either be more specific, your hip shouldn't show, your upper arm shouldn't show, la 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 la. But they only did that because I had been there with my little kurtis, right? Mm-hmm. So when you show up as yourself, suddenly the hairdo for what is considered formal changes. Suddenly the color of dress that is considered acceptable and official changes. And so when you show up as yourself, you're creating this. You're becoming part of the with instead of the for. So when they write down acceptable, dressing. I remember my first summer here was shocking because, the students, they just showed up. It was hot, but I was like, are they going to the beach after this? It's very normal here. It's very normal. The little tiny shorts and the little tops. It's like, I wanted to close the schools. Like, I'm talking to the head of schools, like, no. Wait, the shorts, have you seen the shorts? And she was like, we can't talk about it. But we later on revert back to this story and how policy can be shifted by you just being yourself. Show up with your little short over summer, And then let's see where that goes and how that informs. Don't do it. You still want to be employed on Monday morning. So belonging has to be structural, it has to be relational, and it has to be cultural. When you show up as yourself, you're informing all of these things, right? You're making it part of the structure, part of what is acceptable. You are showing people your cultural values and how you want to be valued. And those things, that is why, the Bad Bunny thing, I don't know any of his songs. I had to Google him. It was a whole task because I'm the diversity lady. I need to know what's going on. So I was like, oh, Bad Bunny, what did he do? What does he do? And I had to inform myself before his performance. But look, as a nation, we learned something. We learned something, whether Bad Bunny intended it or not. We learned something about the Hispanic community, the Latino community. We learned something. And so the structure, the relation, the culture can only become normalized if we expose it ourselves. But we came here so that we can see how to build this, right? And I told you I'm a storyteller, man. It's a half hour in. So welcome to the Belonging Lab. This Belonging Lab, the idea of it, I pride myself in being I'm very African. It's a proud thing for me. And I feel like we've been underestimated, we've been misinformed about, it's a lot of mess, and I feel like if I can do just a tiny thing to clean that up. And so African Indigenous Knowledge Systems is a passion, and it is a goal, and it is something that I intentionally infuse in the way I show up in the conversations I hold. And so this lab is going to take into account the Eurocentric way in which our schools are designed. We're also going to go back into the wisdom, African wisdom, and today we are borrowing from Sankofa. This is the symbol of Sankofa. You'll see it in many different ways. Some of you are familiar with it. If you're not, it is the idea that it is okay to go back for that which has been forgotten. Mm-hmm. It's okay to say, you know what? Don't say it though, but you can say, oh, this soft parenting thing, what is it called? Gentle parenting? It's not working. It's not working. I need to go back to having firm boundaries and da-da-da. If you realize what you're doing, maybe the system needs to go back and look at what used to make school a little more structured, what used to work for us, what hasn't worked for us, because we don't just go back to get things. Sometimes we go back to pick wisdom and lessons. Why did we stop doing that thing, right? What did we never do? Where's the gap? Sometimes it's just an empty space. You're like, where were these people? Why is there no representation of this group of people? So we're gonna dip into the world of Sankofa. And the idea of Sankofa is just go back and fetch it. And what have we forgotten? What was never valued? What must we reclaim? Those are things that we want to put into mind as we design this. And at some point, you're going to pick one thing that you really want to work on as a person, make a suggestion to your school, and just say, this is something that I think we should put into consideration. Or I think that there's a value here that we aren't necessarily looking at, right? Now, this is the Western and Eurocentric system and the way schools look like, typically. They're text heavy, right? The more books you can read, the better. They're very linear. Teacher passes it to child, student. It's very linear. It's very authority-centered because there's somebody talking and the other people listening. Case in point, right now. And I have, by then, no qualification to be holding authority or anything, but it just happens that I'm centralized as opposed to us sitting in a circle, having a conversation, and you chipping in and saying what you know and what you understand. And then it's knowledge-centered. Oh my God, does the West love knowledge? The more books you read, the more doctorates, the more this, that is very respected here, right? But indigenous knowledge systems are oral. And sometimes I ask people, do you know how African traditions and knowledge and wisdom survived all that has happened to it? People have tried to kill it, steal it, stomp on it. Any type of defilement you can do to a piece of knowledge has been done. But how do we know some of these things? How have they survived? And even though they'll tell you oral literature is unreliable, how has that persevered for Africa, right? How come we remember, how come we know now what our ancestors intended and said if oral tradition is so weak.
The griots.
The griots, that's a fantastic example of oral communication and oral preservation of identity, of who we are, of what we value, of what we want to happen, is very reliable. It is communal. I was raised in a village. I have had my behind whooped by people whose names I didn't know. I was doing wrong on the side of the road 3 villages over, and some random woman was like, oh my God, and properly set me straight. And I couldn't tell my mom either, because then that'd be second, version 2.0 of, oh my God, you're embarrassing me in the village. And so it was communal. Parents never say, don't hang out with that kid because they are a bad kid. My mom, it was her responsibility to make sure that when we were in her homestead playing, we were all being kind and considerate and this. And all of those informal lessons teaches you something about being a member of community, right? But I think that Westernization and the Western way of thinking is very individual in nature. I'm thinking about myself, how I feel, my money, my space. We even teach it to children. This is my space, you can't come into it, right? And to some point, it is a good thing, but there has to always be, when do we have that? But when do we become members of community? It is iterative, which means it's repeated over and over and over. If you listen to African fables, it's almost like if you listen to Anansi, the god, you can turn that story into 62 different stories. They would still be saying the same thing. And so you repeat it in different ways, and it teaches you how to bend knowledge and apply it in many different situations. So wisdom can never be linear. It has to be communal, but it also has to be something you can apply to many different forms. And then it is wisdom-centered. The difference, and I don't want to see, I know everybody knows the difference between knowledge and wisdom, but knowing how to apply things, knowing how to use knowledge is wisdom. Learning knowledge and learning things just for the sake of, which is, the role of ChatGPT at the moment, is necessary. It's not necessarily useful when you want to build belonging. So disrupting the default, which is we have to study, you have to do this. Instead of doing that, we can disrupt the default by borrowing from indigenous cultures that have somehow persevered all of the historic atrocities that have happened to it to be here. What is it that happened? And if you look at those cultures, they live very beautifully. It's simple, but there just seems to be a sense of love and belonging naturally. It is the work under the work. It is work that people don't do, but they actually do. It's just, you don't have to overly exert yourself. And so, I like storytelling. I already told you that. Spend the first half hour telling stories. But storytelling is a method. My 7th graders love me. You can't tell me nothing in my 7th grade class. I show up and they love having me. At least they tell me that. And I teach many different classes, but this year, 7th grade is my favorite. Don't tell the other ones, but they're my favorite. But it's because recently we finished reading The Book Thief, and I gave them a project to reimagine part of it and create your own book. And they did this amazing project where some of them took old books, painted over them, and rewrote over them like Liesl did. Some of them had hidden pockets. Some of them created old books and on the top wrote Mein Kampf, and inside made a hole but created a whole other story and hid in it because they know that. And they say to me when they were presenting, and other teachers were so impressed by them, and they love to hear it, right? So I sent all the other teachers, like, you better tell them they did an amazing job. And they said, Miss, how did we do that? How did we learn how to do that? And I said, well, I think you were having too good a time to realize you were learning all of these things. When people tell stories, and even now, it's been 40 minutes, and there's a high chance you may feel like we did nothing, we just listened to that woman talk and tell stories. But storytelling is a powerful tool. It disarms people. They think you're just telling them stories. So they're very receptive, they're very open. And I use storytelling because it is something stories persevere, because those are values that community refuses to forget. They're like, there's one thing, if nothing else, I want you to carry this in your heart of hearts. I want you to pass it on to your children. And nobody even tells you that. They make you feel that. You're like, this is one thing I want to teach my children about my culture is la 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 la, right? And nobody ever said that to me, but it is something that showcases what our community refuses to forget. Story is also evidence, right? All of those lived experiences are data. And so when you tell stories of my childhood, riding on banana leaves and creating this, it may seem like a story, but it also shows a certain sense of perseverance. It represents a certain set of information that you may not necessarily find on a form. Stories are power, because who is allowed to speak, right? Who is believed? Who is interrupted? And if you can just sit in a room and when kids are telling stories to each other, if you just observe that, who is talking? Who's being believed? Who's being told shh, right? Who doesn't matter? They start talking, somebody else talks, and everybody turns to the other person. It will tell you the dynamic that exists in that. So in our own institutions and organizations, how do we know where power sits? Who is being believed? Who is telling the stories? Who's being interrupted? Who's being shushed? And why? Remember how discomfort is not data? That discomfort, what is it? In stories are being told this way, and then stories obviously, I believe, are designed because every policy is built on a story, whether it is named or unnamed. Remember my girls with their little summer wear? And I say girls because the boys didn't care they were coming in, you know. The boys will wear shorts and t-shirt in the dead of winter. That's just their vibe. But the girls will change up. They want to be cute. They want to wear this. The season is here. As soon as that sun cracks through the clouds, oh, I'm like, wait, I'm wearing 7 layers. And you're just going to wear that little crop top. And they're like, oh, miss, it's so hot. I'm like, it's not. Put on a sweater. I remember I used to crank up the ACs at some point just so people could wear a little more in the classes. But that, when I asked, I said, why do we not have a policy about professional dressing? Oh, then I heard the story. Once upon a time in our school, somebody was told they couldn't wear something, but it turned out another girl was wearing the exact same thing. And it became about body size, shape, and one person who could pull off the little short and not make it look a certain way was wearing it, and then the person who wasn't was now being called, and she's like, hold on, what you mean? She's wearing the same shorts. And how do you explain without bringing in other things that are already forbidden? How would you then start saying, you know, as curvy girls, you can't have that conversation. Policy is built on stories. Whether those stories are told or untold, policy is built on stories. And so stories are important. When you have that situation in your school and you feel uncomfortable about, please talk about it. Because it's going to affect the way policy moves on forward. They may never tell you, by the way, you know, I've heard stories of schools being sued. And I was like, and then what happened? And people are like, oh, we never heard of the story. But since last year, so-and-so did this, and now we do that. That is an unnamed, untold story, and yet policies are built on that. We all know policies are systems. And I say belonging is not about people, it's about systems, right? And so we don't want to look at people, we want to look at how do we effect change from inside. So whose stories are shaping your systems? This is my little girl with her friends, and they were doing an art project, and I thought, oh, this is very cute. Because they had like, you know, a little spectrum of just difference and diversity in their fairness, and I was like, interesting. And they were all doing the same thing, but everybody had their own different interpretation of it, which was also very interesting. So which stories are shaping your systems? What story is building your discipline and policy? You can no longer do that one thing you used to do that last year. At my school, there's this thing. You can't give students homework. They can't submit anything 2 days from a break. So we are on spring break. When they come back, I can't ask for any tasks on Monday or Tuesday, which, by the way, that my African head cannot comprehend. I'm like, you had 2 weeks. You can't submit it on Monday. Oh, miss, I was skiing on the slopes of France. I was not working. I'm like, oh, I forget. I did not go for holiday when I was growing up. So I did the homework. But that policy must have come from somewhere, right? And so your discipline policy is a story somewhere. And if you don't share your story, the policy stays the same. But there are also some stories missing. I was supervising an exam in one of the classes in my school. And I saw a history textbook. And being me, I took it and I looked in the table of contents. I was like, Africa. I opened it. I went to a page, and it was about Kwame Nkrumah. And if you don't know who Kwame Nkrumah is, please Google him at some point. And he is one of Africa's founding fathers, right? Leader of the, like, he is a god, a historic god in African, modern history. And he had barely 2 pages in that whole book, and I was like, wait. I, try to remember. I was like, in high school, didn't I have to study a whole textbook on Napoleon? That was just a guy. It wasn't even France. It was just a guy. And I had to do like a whole text on him. And so, what are these children learning about these different parts of the world? How are we distributing that? There was I went to a diversity workshop somewhere with high schoolers, and there was a student who was asking his teachers, who I felt very badly for, because if this question had been asked to me, I would not have had a response. She said, why is Black history an elective? Why? Pray tell, is it an elective? I have to study y'all's history, but you don't want to study mine? And no, history is a really, it's like, no. If we can just study American history and then make sure that we also cover this part of history, and I know some schools are doing a beautiful job of it, but who's missing from your curriculum? And also, what story does your school tell about a good student? That is this I ask in interviews when I am being hired to a school. I feel like I've arrived at a point in my life where you interview me, I interview you. This is a chemistry test. Our energies have to be in sync, because teaching and working in education institutions have their stresses, and you want to make sure that the people you're working with can be worked with you. And I used to ask, could you kindly explain to me what a good student from your school would look like? It's very interesting, the image people have in their head about who a good student is. And that is the story upon which policies are built, right? You could send your students to all the Ivy League universities. You can have them graduating with honors, but is that the definition of a good student? So what we measure and what we experience is usually different, and in between is where belonging holds, right? Do I belong here? Would I be considered a good student? Am I part of the story that is being told about this school? Am I being put in mind when curriculums are being designed? And so, narratives are infrastructure, right? They build the school, the bones of the school. You remember that mission statement? I'm gonna give you 2 options. You can pick one of these small sheets if you wanna work on your own, and I'm happy to pass them on. You can pick one of these if you want to work with somebody, and you can have a big one if you want to work with somebody else. Where does your school say one thing and do another? It could be something as simple as, I'll give you an example. I think this is a safe example. I'm going to leave it here. There is a ski trip at my school every year. When I first came, I saw the letter that goes out to parents, and it said, only experienced skiers are welcome to go because there is no instructor on the slopes. And I was like, something about it sounded interesting. I didn't know what it was. And the next year I saw it again. So I said to somebody, it was like, what happens to the inexperienced students? And at that point I'd also realized, if you're a student on financial aid, and you're not being given the same allowance for all of these trips, what happens to you if you want to go on this ski trip that is obviously very expensive, but also, if you come from where I come from, you've never been on the slope skiing. And so if there are some families, and we can imagine what type of families that don't go skiing as a fun thing to do over the weekend, right? And so when they say only experienced skiers, there are some kids, this is the only chance they have to ever experience skiing. And I said, can we even maybe pretend that we care and say, maybe include a little bit more money Because if I'm a mom and my kid is here, I want her to go skiing, I'm willing to give up a pair of shoes this month. I don't shop shoes that much, I'm just saying. I'm willing to give up something so that I can add on to the trip money so that they can have this experience. And maybe that opens it up to people. And I started asking and talking, blah, blah, blah. Third year, I think I had a conversation with people who can effect policy and say, we need to change the wording of this. This year, a bunch of my 11th graders came up to me, they were excited, they're going skiing. I was like, oh my God. And they were like, I've never been. And I was like, oh. And they were like, yes, I want to go. And I realized somewhere in that narrative, a policy was effected. Even if it's just a word, what has shifted? Because power has to shift a little bit for these structures to be effective, right? So think about your mission statement. Think about your values in your school. What does your school say that is one thing, but it does another? By the way, if you don't like it, I'm a tactile person, I handwrite all the time. If you want to do it on your laptop, you're welcome to do it on your laptop. But if you want somewhere to write, I have places to write. I love using this because then I feel very useful. Later on, I'm like, look, I want my people there. I feel very proud. So you can humor me and use the big one. But whether it is discipline or curriculum or hiring or family engagement, or even the way we announce situations that arise around the world in our schools, what is one thing if you look at your mission statement and you squint, you're like, hold on, this is not what we are doing. What is it? So just take a moment. I'm going to give you 5 minutes to just write down the one thing that you think, this is something that we could be doing, but we say we are doing, but we aren't. It could be something as subtle as a ski trip, right? Or it could be something as, overt as certain groups of people are not allowed, or, or curriculum design, whatever it is. Take 5 minutes. Talk to somebody. Don't do it alone. Communal village. We are a village. We are a village. If you use one of these big ones, you're welcome to borrow the pen. Oh, yes. Okay. I get the sentiment you need.
the same school. Columbia Grammar Public School. Where are you? Oh, the west side.
The funny thing is,
Vous parlez français, madame? Do you speak French?
Very little.
Are you at Mamaroneck?
Wait. Yeah. Do you have associations?
I used to live not far, and I knew my best friend used to work there, but she now moved.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that's where I worked. They have 2 campuses in Mamaroneck and 1 in Dutchman.
Yes.
Yeah.
So you are at the Mamaroneck.
Yeah, but I do DI for all 3. Yeah, but
I live up there in Washington.
I live in New Rochelle. I live in yeah. What school are you?
Nightingale. Nightingale is like not far from here.
Yeah, I've met a couple of people from your school. There's a HR lady,
Yes.
and I think communications director or something. I met 2 ladies today.
Definitely HR, because we were sitting close to each other.
Yeah, yeah.
I don't know who else. Okay. I am from Africa. I've been to Kenya.
Yeah. Oh, you're from Djibouti?
Yes. And my brother used to be vice ambassador at the Djibouti consulate embassy in Nairobi. So we went to visit him for 3 weeks. To Mombasa, Serengeti. Just roaming around.
Oh, you had a good time? I love to hear when people have a good time, because not everybody has the best experience, but it's always nice when people can see the beauty and enjoy the culture, the people. Yeah.
I would love to stay in touch with you.
Yeah.
Maybe we can exchange
Yes,
contact.
yes. Let's do that. When I'm done, we'll exchange
Sisters and
some.
colleagues. Then.
Yeah, yeah, that would be amazing. I love that. I love networking and meeting new people.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Wonderful.
Thank you.
that's the problem. That's the problem. That's like, no, it's just like, I don't know.
Well, recently, just like this misalignment, like hiring the I feel like they say that they want to hire all these diversity people, and they want to hire, but they end up hiring the same type of person. It's never really, it's not truly diversity. Right. Yes, there has to be like, there has to be things that you check off. You're acceptable for.
I'm also accepting
We have 1 more minute.
the idea of community involvement, but from a different lens. So when we talk about this before, about what is community and like how far out does that community stretch, right? To be on the west side,
To make it more palatable for
so you see a specific kind of demographic in our building, but like
palatable.
what are we
Palatable.
Yeah.
like I think like second off the subject. What was the concept of the housing project? Are they in community where they get to benefit from a good scholarship or any of these opportunities that those families will get to benefit from being a part of that? I want to become both ways. I mean, we also run this thing, right? We support this community also. That's the part of that.
Hey, I know once the conversations begin and people have ideas and everybody gets a chance. So all I was asking for you to do is find a gap between what is said to be happening versus what is really happening. And finding that gap forces you to name the system behind it. Why is there a flaw between what is being said? Is there somebody in the chain of command who is not upholding the mission, the value? What is it? And if it's not, it's usually not a person. If you really go behind the person, that person is enabled by a system. And so you don't target the person, you target the system. You try to make a recommendation that is not, it's a people free. Because we don't solve people, we solve problems, right? So you look at the system. Now, in the grand design of a belonging system that is accommodative, I try to look at how UDL does it. The Universal Design for Learning, and try to marry it with the African Indigenous Knowledge Systems. And I realized that what UDL does and does very well to make sure that all students are taken care of is it has multiple ways to access, right? So you have all of the differentiation happening in class because you know that not every student learns the same way. The reason why sometimes you give a sit-in assessment, sometimes you give presentations, sometimes you do research, sometimes you do practical work, is because you're giving students multiple ways to access that knowledge or that education. And so this shows that this is not an individualistic thing. It doesn't exist in a vacuum. It is something that has multiple ways of showcasing itself. So in our schools, if the system is really healthy, you can access it through the parents, through the students, through the staff. There are so many ways you can say this is actually a foolproof system that is healthy to uphold belonging. There are also multiple ways to engage, right? In our school, there are multiple ways of reporting issues that pop up. Diversity issues or any other issues that have to do with community and belonging. You can talk to your head of section, your division head, you can talk to your head of department, you can talk to me, you can talk to any of the other coordinators. You can also report anonymously through a form, right? Because some people just don't want to put their name out there. There are so many ways of being able to engage and just be part of something. We are planning the Arab American Heritage Month celebration when we go back from our spring break. For those of you who already had your spring break, I am so sorry. I am in the middle of mine and I'm enjoying it. I'll be driving south on Saturday. Yes, you're allowed to feel jealous. It's going to be amazing. This having multiple ways of engaging with whatever it is that you are trying to build belonging on, where there are some members of our community will come up to me and say, I don't want to be outward contributing to this event, but I'm happy to, I know this henna person that will come and do the henna tattoos, or I can bring a casserole, or I can give you some contact, or I can provide you slides. I'm not going to present them, you can use them. There are multiple ways of feeling like I belong. I don't have to be this person overtly doing this for me to feel like I belong. And there's some students who honestly, they don't want to be in the spotlight. They're like, I just want to survive high school. Don't make it harder than it already is. Yes, I need belonging, but not like that. And so how do we accommodate that student who needs it but wants to be cool or part of the tribe and don't want to speak up? Multiple ways to express. Like I said, in my school, we try to provide multiple ways of expressing discomfort, or I don't feel like I belong in this space. So all of this is to say that if you think of the universal design for belonging, it has to be communal, it has to be embodied, and it has to be contextual, where it actually makes sense to your community. I work for a French American school. French people just do not do DEI. Not because they're horrible people, but they come from a space where it is so deeply ingrained in them that if you point out anybody's difference outside of being French, there's something intrinsically horrible about it. So when you start asking them to identify people, they don't want to do it not because they're terrible people, but because they come from a system that has somehow conditioned them into what they've become. You have to give them ways in which they can express. My assistant head of school, lovely lady called Christine, was doing a presentation the other day about high context communicators and low context communicators. I'm African, so I'm a high context communicator. But then French, American, they're like, you're fired. And you're like, wait. I don't see, there's no meat to this. It's just bone. But in my community, we can fire you so beautifully. You will get home before you realize you've been let go. You're like, wait, I remember us beating around the bush, but hold on. And then you realize, that was that. And so sometimes I feel offended. I wrote an email to a colleague. I wanted her to do something that I was like, I work with her. So I was like, we need to do this, this, and that. She responded to me and CC my division head. I was like, girl, I didn't bring my gun. I thought it was coming. I brought a knife. Why are you tagging the boss? And I took it so personal that I was just like, why would you involve her? Like, I could have answered this without her involvement. And I was so upset. And then I saw her, but because I cannot, there's no filter between my brain and my mouth. And so I was like, I've been meaning to ask, why did you? And to be honest, her intentions were pure. There was no malice. She said you wanted me to ask blah, blah, blah to do this. And I thought instead of going 3-way, why not just CC her? So that she can just, if there's any gap or it's something you can't respond to, she can. I was like, wait, let me recalibrate my African brain. I didn't think that way. High context, low context communication. And sometimes you have to present people multiple ways of expressing themselves. High context communicators, we need to have our ways of being able to express our discomfort, right? As opposed to also providing a way for low context communicators to also do that. Now, we want to design belonging for the margins. We are looking at marginalized communities, the minorities, the global majorities. But we want to benefit everybody, right? So we are just looking at like in your class, there are students who are, you design assessments with them in mind. You're like, I'll give them more time. It doesn't take away from the kid that can do it within the same time. It just provides more tools for the kid that needs a little extra time to be able to perform their best. And so this design for belonging wants to, design for the people on the fringes, but we know that everybody is being taken care of. So when you think of designing for that one thing that you find a lapse in, whether it is a policy, a protocol, a practice, something, you need to think of how do I do this into a way that is useful now. Because the introduction took so long, I'm not going to be able to finish this. I'm going to rush through and then I'm going to show you a tool that I had designed for you. And I use it, so I know that it is useful. So when you design your belonging, the little gap that you found, whether in the practice, the protocol, the values, the mission, make sure that it's something that is measurable. You can actually tell there was a change. Make sure that it is repeatable. In your absence, somebody else can do it. Make sure that it shifts power even if it's in the slightest. And if it's somebody saying, yes, we'll look into it, or we'll have this conversation at this level, whatever it is, make sure that there is a little power shift. Don't be shy to have big power shift. I'm just saying, if you want to remain conservative, little power shift is fine. And you have to be able to implement it in 90 days. Otherwise, when it takes so long, you discourage yourself, right? I'm going to share this. I'm going to give you a sheet. You can share your email and I will send this to you. You have to choose your focus. You have to prototype a shift and you have to prepare to share. And then there's a whole conversation part. We're just going to ignore that. But we'll change, we'll own it. What does success look like? How will you measure it? And then this is, find a problem, work on what is the shift and what does the shift need? What is the short-term impact? And how do you intend for that impact to be part of the system, right? So there are some things that I do at my school. For example, when I showed up, I said, we need education. We can't just be celebrating these people without an education. I work with lovely people who say we'll create a time in the calendar and you can have an assembly, a DI assembly once a month with the high school and with the middle school. I was like, yes. And then the next year I say, can we make sure that this assembly, when students go to advisory before or after we offload or we onload, like where students can know what's coming and they can ask the right questions, or sometimes it's a lot of information. They can be able to decompress in the next advisory class and actually do follow-ups in smaller groups. And we did that. And then next year I say, can we then timetable all of the celebrations in the year, because parents are usually part of them, they can plan them better. If I leave, I'm sure there'll still be monthly assemblies. If I leave, I'm sure parents now anticipate these things, right? So it could be just a little shift that you make depending on whether it is in your department. Maybe you want to introduce a book, right? Any school I've worked for, they don't know this, don't tell them. But I make sure that we do one contemporary African writer, right? So Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie at the moment is I try to make sure we do that because I feel like this is my gift to you. You didn't know literature like this existed. And you know storytelling like this existed. And so let me show you dystopian African future, right? And kids can get it because they've watched Wakanda Forever. They're like, yes, we can visualize this. We can visualize it. I tease it. I show them Warrior, the Woman King. I show them little trailers and they're into it. So I'm like, yeah, we're going to do this book called The Akata Witch, but it's about, and we're going to do this. And I sell it so hard that now my 6th graders, they're waiting. They're like, next year we are doing this. If you dare take it off the table, you'll hear from them. They'll be like, hold on. We saw this book coming. We want to be part of that. So when is this going to become a system, right? So that if you leave your school, something happens, this can still self-sustain. Belonging is built in systems, right? So we don't want to attack the people. We want to look at the systems. And I have given you this lovely QR code. If you scan it, it's going to lead you to a document that you can edit and adjust however you like and use it for building your belonging prototype. I ask that you shift one little thing, even if it's you sneaking in the contemporary, whatever it is you come from, literature, or in your department suggesting, oh, you know what, science, I tell science teachers all the time, could you please mention where the thinkers of your subject came from? Just that. And it's actually less threatening when the science teacher does it as opposed to me doing it on a DI assembly. It makes it less, people are not as defensive in science class. They're like, it's part of the knowledge. Even math, I'm like, do you know where Pythagoras theorem came from? Tell them. Let them know. Even if it's making it tradition. When we introduce a new topic, we look at all the people that have contributed to that topic, you will realize, and students will realize how beautiful the diversity in knowledge creation has been, right? One interesting fact about this topic is, right, I learned the other day Mendel, the periodic table guy, is the guy who designed vodka. I was like, ooh, I like this guy. I don't know why I'm trying to break that. But it was interesting to hear that. It's a silly fact, but I can see how that is interesting. I'm like, ooh, the ratio of 40 to 60. Perfect. You know, he is the periodic table guy. Of course, he knows his elements. Do not ruin the science. You know, whatever it is, find a way of infusing all of those things. And remember, showing up as you, wholly and unapologetically is you, disrupting a system, introducing a new normal, showing people what belonging for you is. And trust me, long after you've left, policies will be designed because you were here, because you showed up as yourself. Thank you so much for showing up. So, before you leave, if you could kindly leave me your email address, because you didn't use these papers, I'm gonna make sure that you do right. If you pass it around, just you can reach out to me. I have this is my email address and my phone number. You can email me if you want me to come to your school and tell stories, or you want to collaborate on something. I'm very passionate about African Indigenous knowledge systems. I'm very passionate about storytelling. And so if you ever want to collaborate or reach out, have a question, or want me to send you any of my resources, how we design our belonging and that type of thing, I'll be happy to share that. And enjoy the rest of your presentations or afternoon, and enjoy Manhattan for the rest, for some of us who don't live here. Yeah, out of the city.
Yeah. That was fantastic.
No, I'm getting winters.
Oh.
Did you take one from the back?
Yes. I can't believe you put
Okay. You got me from all angles.
I got a bunch. And I got a bunch with like the backs of people's
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you so much for coming.
Oh, I didn't do this.
Somebody was like,
I got so creative immediately. Oh yeah, it was really so fun.
You're just gassing me up.
It's
always gassing me up. It's so nice to
I really enjoyed it. So it really made me think about, like, you have to create the space for you to belong too. Like, I know, like, I don't feel like I have to, I'm the one that determines if I belong in a place. But at the same time, if you want to belong in
You
a
have
place,
to show up
yeah, you have to show up.
in an authentic way.
Right. And even though you might feel a little bit uncomfortable, maybe later, they just will remember. And
No,
yeah,
yeah, you
make
make
it
an
more,
impression.
make it even more, make them more willing to accept someone like.
I just was like, if you listen, what's going on? Somebody stopped. Like, I think when they stopped, they said, I don't know.
Yeah, yeah. But also, how about you? What are you doing now?
There's like several ladies.
That's actually, okay.
Mary said she's there, like,
Oh, okay.
so I was wondering if is there a way to
Which one?
the one you did.
Oh, the one I just took. Oh, yeah.
100%. So many things that were so, valuable.
Are you okay?
No, I am falling all over. No, I'm okay.
I
I'm
got
okay.
this. I just got this from Egypt.
Yeah, the ankh.
Yes.
I need to stop the recording.